Europe has seen its fair share of boundary transformations over the centuries. From sweeping empires to shifting alliances, the borders of Europe have continuously evolved. So today I would like to show the map of Europe and compare it to 500 years ago. What did it look like? Who was in charge? And what events happened? Let's start with the Balkans. Today the Balkans are made up of the countries Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Bulgaria, Croatia, Greece, Montenegro, North Macedonia, Romania, Serbia, Slovenia, and a small part of Turkey, and Kosovo. It should be noted that Kosovo's status as a country is subject to international recognition. Serbia, with the backing of Russia and China, continues to claim sovereignty over Kosovo. However, 500 years ago, almost this entire region was under the rule of the Ottoman Empire. In 1522, the Ottoman Empire began a siege on the island of Rhodes, which was then held by the Knights of St. John. After a prolonged and intensive siege, the Ottomans allowed the Knights to leave the island and eventually settled in Malta. In 1530, the Knights of Malta were granted sovereignty over the islands by the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, and in exchange the Emperor requested an annual fee of one Maltese falcon. While the Ottomans were set on control of southeastern Europe, countries like Spain and Portugal were engaged in exploration and colonization in the New World, establishing great empires. The Aztec Empire was a fragile confederation of city-states. Its population were also dealing with smallpox disease brought by the Spanish. The Spanish, with their superior military technology, strategic alliances, and the impact of the disease, took advantage and had ultimately toppled the Aztec Empire in 1521. What is now modern-day Spain was split into a number of kingdoms, but were unified under a single monarch. Charles V inherited the title through a combination of family connections and political maneuvering. He was a member of the Habsburg family, a very powerful European dynasty. He ruled over a vast empire that included the Holy Roman Empire, the Kingdom of Spain, the Spanish Netherlands, Naples, Sicily, and the Spanish colonies in the Americas, the Viceroyalty of Spain. The Holy Roman Empire itself was more complex. It was not a centralized nation-state, but a federation of territories. The emperor had limited authority, with real power held by regional rulers. For example, Bohemia and Austria were part of the Holy Roman Empire, but also functioned as powerful, distinct political entities. For my sanity, I will not be highlighting every territory on this map. So here's Google's. The nation of Hungary was once much larger than it is today. Under the reign of King Matthias Corvinus, Matthias achieved many great things, but he did what every other successful king did. He died without an heir. The strength of Hungary began to dwindle towards the end of the century due to internal divisions and weak leadership. In 1526, the Hungarian army suffered a catastrophic defeat against the Ottomans. Their king even died in battle, leading to another political power vacuum and further territorial fragmentation. In present day, Romania and Moldova look like this, but 500 years ago it was very different. Wallachia, located in what is now southern Romania, was an independent principality that emerged in the early 14th century. They famously resisted Ottoman expansion under the leadership of Vlad the Impaler, who was known for his methods of harsh punishment. Throughout much of the 15th century, the Principality of Moldova was at times a vassal to the Kingdom of Poland. However, both principalities became a vassal of the Ottoman Empire, paying tribute and military support in return for retaining internal autonomy. Central Europe was just like the Holy Roman Empire, in that it was an absolute mess. Italy was far from a united nation. Instead, it existed as a patchwork of city-states, republics, and kingdoms. Notable among these were the Papal States, the Kingdom of Naples, the Duchy of Milan, the Republic of Venice, the Republic of Florence, and all of them were vying for dominance. The Italian Wars, spanning from the years 1494 to 1559, were the prevailing backdrop of this period. France, Spain, and the Holy Roman Empire were embroiled in these struggles, often manipulating the Italian states to serve their larger ambitions. The Papal States, were territories that were under the direct control of the Pope, who often benefited off these wars, seeking to expand their territorial holdings and political influence. In the northeast of Italy, the Republic of Venice thrived, thanks to its powerful navy and extensive trade networks. The island of Corsica, currently a part of France, was under the control of Genoa. The Genoese founded the earliest banks in the world and helped finance many of the Spanish crown's foreign endeavours. The House of Savoy was one of Europe's oldest royal dynasties, and they ruled the Duchy of Savoy among other territories. France was a dominant European power under the rule of the Valois dynasty. However, its territory was not as large as today. In 1491, Duchess Anne of Brittany married King Charles VIII of France, but despite this union, Brittany maintained a degree of autonomy, and Anne worked to preserve the duchy's independence. It would not be until 1532 that Brittany would become a part of France. The country was at the epicenter of fostering cultural, intellectual, and artistic advancements, as well as conflicts, particularly with the Habsburgs. In 1525, the aims to expand their influence into Italy failed, as the forces of Charles V defeated and captured the French king, forcing France to abandon its claims in Italy and Flanders. The Teutonic Order, also known as the Teutonic Knights, was a medieval military and religious order that played a significant role in the Baltic region. The Teutonic Knights arrived in the Baltic region in the early 13th century. They were dedicated to the conversion of pagans and the expansion of Christianity in Eastern Europe. They established their headquarters in what is now Poland, and they greatly expanded, waging military campaigns against Prussians, Lithuanians, and other Baltic tribes. However, the Order's rule in Prussia came to an end in 1525, when the Grand Master, under Protestant influence, dissolved the Order and accepted its lands as a secular duchy for himself as the suzerain. Livonia then became a loose union of semi-independent territories. As for Poland and Lithuania, the two nations were in a personal union since the marriage of Queen Jadwiga of Poland and the Grand Duke of Lithuania. In 1569, the kingdom and the duchy were joined together. It was one of the largest and most populous countries in Europe at the time. What's now modern-day Russia didn't exist. In the 15th century, the prominent Principality of Muscovy was rising in influence. With the consolidation of its power, it absorbed neighbouring principalities and symbolically broke free from Mongol rule. Muscovy had expanded its territories, but was continuously threatened by Crimean Tatar raids. These raids disrupted economic stability and strained military resources. The Crimean Khanate had also emerged from the remnants of the Golden Horde and Mongol rule, but it became a vassal of the Ottoman Empire with a degree of autonomy. Portugal's borders might look relatively unchanged within the last 500 years, and this is basically because, well, its borders haven't changed since its inception. But it should be noted, just like Spain, Portugal was at its zenith of global influence, with an empire that spanned 3 continents. The nation continued to capitalise on its early explorations, establishing a vast network of colonies and trading posts. The influx of spices and exotic goods made Portugal one of the wealthiest nations in Europe. In Scandinavia, we have the modern-day countries of Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark. In 1523, Gustav Vasa ascended to the throne. This event was not just a change in leadership, but a dismantling of the centuries-old Kalmar Union that had bound together Sweden, Denmark, and Norway since 1397. The Kalmar Union was established to unify these Nordic realms under a single monarch, with the goal of strengthening their collective power and defence. However, by the early 16th century, this union had become increasingly strained and fragmented. Under the Kalmar Union, Sweden had seen its influence and power diminish, and the Swedish nobility were discontent with the Danish king's rule. The Stockholm bloodbath occurred, a brutal betrayal where many of the Swedish nobility were murdered under the order of the Danish king. In 1523, the Kalmar Union was dissolved. Sweden became independent, while also controlling what is now Finland. The Union of Denmark-Norway remained, with several other territories under its belt, including Iceland and Greenland. Denmark also controlled the modern-day province of Slesvig and Holstein. Slesvig was a Danish fief, while Holstein was part of the Holy Roman Empire, but both were ruled by the Danish king in a personal union. To the west in the British Isles, today we have the United Kingdom, made up of the countries England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, while Northern Ireland borders a separate country of Ireland. 500 years ago, England was characterised by the rule of Henry VIII, and his later separation from the Catholic Church and the English Reformation. England had conquered Wales in 1284, but in the north Scotland remained a free and independent kingdom. James V was on the throne, maintaining Scotland's own distinct monarchy and legal system. The entirety of Ireland was claimed by Henry VIII of England. However, in reality he only controlled a small territory known as the Pale, and most of Ireland was divided between several Irish kingdoms.